And hello, everyone. We are back. This is Alexander Levine live with the America's Pulse Network. We are here with segment 3. This is a very special guest. She's a new guest to the show, Allison Reedy, and she has a very important story to tell us. Let's bring her up.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. So, Allison, please tell us about your son's case.
Yeah, so basically, right now we are in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. We had a Obama-appointed judge terminate our case and basically gave everybody responsible government immunity, although gross negligence, child abuse, and no due process were factors in the case, which should automatically make it to where they don't get government immunity. But that's what the judge decided. So I was able to raise another $5,000, get a new lawyer, and now we are in the appeals court.
So, let me ask you, what are you expecting as a final result of this?
You know what? I promised my son from day one that what he went through, I will fight for a settlement for him. But I am also fighting so that this does not happen to another student. If we don't fight for the United States Constitution, the United States Constitution cannot protect us, we the people. And this case is egregious. What they did to my son, they can do to anybody.
So, can
And
you
I do believe that him being a Christian conservative played a huge role in that.
Now, can you tell us more in detail about why your son was accused of being a domestic terrorist?
Yeah, so basically, he was in math class. He was 14 years old. Him and another student, they were playing a whiteboard game. My son did not get the answer correctly right away, and he kind of grunted. And this other kid named Thomas, he was just joking around. That was the atmosphere, joking around. And why he said, "Don't be like an Oxford school shooter," is beyond me. And my son said, "I'm not going to be like an Oxford school shooter and shoot the school up." So basically, the teacher heard the last part of what he said from 15 feet away, and she reported it to an administrative staff that already did not like me because I had already become a problem at the school. We were only at this school for 2 months, and I had already been complaining about a gender poster that had 26 genders on it. And I complained about the mask mandate. My son had eczema. He couldn't wear the fiberglass mask. So they knew exactly who I was when they had my son in this situation. Also, the very same day that he was arrested for domestic terrorism, I turned in an assignment where they were teaching that Christians worship Allah. And when I asked my son about that assignment, he said the teacher played a song and had the kids fill in the blanks. So there was definitely some retaliation, I believe, when they decided to, they had their investigation. The kids at the table said that's not what he said. They put it out on the media. 14-year-old threatens to shoot up the school during a verbal altercation with another student. Well, who was that other student? Because that kid Thomas is saying that's not what happened. So they definitely were trying to create a false narrative and put a false fear out in the community.
So, Allison, tell us what state you live in, where this happened, what county, and tell us, have you reached out to any of your school board members or any elected official where you live?
So a couple of days later, the board at the school, Huron Township, it's the Huron High in New Boston, they unanimously voted to expel my straight A student who had never been in trouble in his life. When my husband asked if any of them had witness statements, they all said no. So they basically just went off of what the superintendent told them that they were going to do, which he also told my lawyer that the board had already made up their mind that he was going to get expelled. And this was before our hearing took place. I also made sure that Thomas, the student, was at that hearing and he was not called on. So they definitely were trying to push a narrative that just was not there. Even at the expulsion hearing, Andrew Tomzak, he's the vice principal, he said that this was done in a joking manner, but then he sat in court on the criminal case and said that my son made a threat. So I mean, just so many lies, just trying to railroad my poor innocent son.
Now, have you contacted your elected officials at all? Have you contacted the governor to help?
Yep, so this actually happened in Wayne County, Michigan. I have reached out to some of the state representatives. They've all said that they can't really give me any legal advice or anything like that. So when I hear about these stories about these MS-13 gang members, they are getting more attention and they're getting more help from the Congress members, and my innocent 14-year-old son. I mean, this really took the smile right off my son's face. He's never been the same, and that's why I continue to fight, because I believe that he deserves justice. This just isn't a case. This is my son's life. This is our family, and this is a reality of hell that we've lived since 2021. We had to move. We just moved out to Huron. So we were only there for 2 months when this happened. We were actually trying to escape some of these political ideologies that were being implemented in the school system. And we felt moving out to the country, we were going to raise our kids just basically with a better, wholesome lifestyle. Boy, were we wrong. So we ended up packing it up and moving right on back. And, that was so that my son didn't have to deal with all of the harassment and things of that we were dealing with. They put this out on the media, and basically I had vigilante parents that were sending me pictures of, this is a picture of my family. I had one of somebody send me a picture that said, future active shooter sister, future active shooter brother. I mean, just total harassment and put our family through absolute hell. Um, so fast forward, we're fighting this criminal case. We're getting these off-record plea deals, which this is why I feel like malicious prosecution, because they were trying a case that they knew was innocent, but they just kept on doing it. And I should be able to hold the state prosecutor accountable. And basically, they wanted us to plead to disorderly conduct. I said my son was not naked in the street, drunk. I said, no, we're not doing that. They said, okay, well, if he writes a letter that says he's sorry, we'll dismiss the case. I talked to my son. My son said they should be writing me a letter. And I agreed with him. So we basically just fought. I've spent $26,000 defending my son, and we're in appeals court. I'm not going to quit. If I have to take it to the Supreme Court, I'll take it there.
Now, have you been raising money on a GoFundMe for this? Is this coming out of your own personal funds?
It's just coming out of my own personal funds. I'm blessed. God made me a realtor, and he's put it in, he's laid it down, and I've been able to pick it up. So I will sell a house. I'll pay some legal fees. So that's basically been my life since 2021. I used to take my kids on these nice vacations, and we've just kind of, hunkered down, and we're just being a little bit more frugal. And this is my priority, fighting for my son. And there's nothing more important than fighting for him.
Well, don't you think it's very weird that you have a wife fighting for her illegal MS-13 gang member husband? Then you have other families that are fighting for their children that murdered somebody in cold blood or murdered someone on a track field, and they're raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for those people. What say you about that?
Yeah, it disgusts me. It really does. My son is 100% innocent. And what he said that day, the judge at our trial court even said, I don't see anything that should have even been perceived as a threat. And, we haven't had the governor reach out to us. We haven't had any kind of help from our state representatives. Really, anytime the word is out there, it's because I'm putting it out there, because I think the truth, it needs to be out there. I'm not going to let the truth get buried. My son, he is a senior now. This happened when he was a freshman, and he still deals with stuff at the school. So it's just not fair, and I'm going to continue to expose it as much as I can. And I think it's egregious. That's what I think. I think the fact that people want to rally behind people who take other people's lives. I did notice with the Dallas shooter, you didn't really see anything about that. They didn't have his face on the media, and then they didn't really say much about it. My son was on every local news channel. Mind you, they couldn't say his name, but they could say mine.
Mm.
So as a realtor, that really kind of, screwed me. But a lot of my clients are I've used them before, and I'm on a referral base. So 100% referral. But I have had some clients who didn't call me back, and I do think it's because they Googled, and I have that stain on my name now that my son made a terroristic threat when he absolutely did not.
Now, as you know, your governor, she's going up for reelection. John James has actually come out to run against her as a Republican. Have you reached out to John James at all?
No, I do have him on my Facebook, and I believe I did send him a message. I haven't heard anything back. He's a veteran. I'm 100% behind veterans. He 100% will have my vote. But as far as this case goes, it would be nice if somebody cared about the truth. All you have to do is look through the records. Stevie Wonder could see the injustice in this case. Um, it never should have happened. Even the juvenile director said, "How did it get this far?" And, Kim Worthy, she knew that they were fighting this case and it was innocent, and she just kept on. And if you look at her record, it's terrible. She is known for fighting cases that are innocent, and she will just continue to fight them. And then you have cases that, need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and they're just getting off pretty easy. So yeah, it's disgusting. It really scarred my son, our family, and we're in a healing process right now, but I'm definitely going to expose it every way I can.
Have you also reached out to the Trump administration at all about this?
So I actually, it's funny how God works, because he actually put Linda Lee Tarver in my life that night. And she cried on the phone with me, and she actually guided me on how to fight this. And she knew my son was innocent. She listened to everything that I said. And yeah, we basically, when we would get a plea deal and I would talk to her, or she just basically guided us. She's like, "You're going to fight this." So I'm very grateful for her. I love Linda Lee Tarver for life. But she was kind of integrated with the Trump administration a little bit. I've talked to Margot. I can't think of her last name right now, but let me see if I can look it up real quick.
I
She
think
heard the
Mark,
story. She was very shocked about it. I'm not really sure if she's going to do anything. But yeah, it was nice to hear her sympathy and her empathy, with what we've been through, because we haven't had that. We've just basically been railroaded, and no sympathy, no I'm sorry, no nothing. They just want to hunker down, and Margot Martin, such a sweet lady. So I'm not sure if she's going to share the story. I know they have so much going on right now trying to save America. So, it is what it is. But I do think that he would care about what happened to my son. Completely innocent, straight A student. They put him on online schooling in his ninth grade year. And because of that, he went to all D's, which my son would cry at night because he's looking at a little tiny 8 by 10 screen, trying to do this work with no support. And he's very academically competitive. This is his niche. He's not into sports, he's into his academics. And for this to happen to my son is it's so messed up. And yeah, I'm fighting, and I'm going to keep on fighting.
I was going to say Linda McMahon would be a good reference for you as well. She is the head of the Department of Education. Even
Yeah,
though,
mhm.
go ahead.
I just started kind of following her a little bit. I did send out a message, but I don't know how many people are going to look at their messenger on Facebook.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. My advice to you on that is you're on this network, you're on this platform. We'll do everything we can to get you to the right
Thank you.
course. As well as what I say to people is you have to kind of just like you're doing, keep fighting, keep fighting for the answers, keep fighting for your son. And the more you
Yes.
put it out there, the more word gets around. I do want to talk to you about your Facebook page because it is a big page that has a lot of people. When did you start the Facebook page and how many viewership do you have on that Facebook page now?
I don't exactly remember when I started it. I just thought it would be good to start saving all these documents and things of that nature. I'm just kind of sharing the journey, showing how the detective was put from a detective to an administrative detective. You know, this detective, he was so mean to my son. He basically, when he had him in the cop car, well, let me start from when we first met the detective. So they actually left me in a room for about an hour and a half while they interrogated my son. And I'm in the lobby and I'm waiting and I'm asking, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" Because they called me and they said, "You need to come down to the school and pick up your son. He's in big trouble." That was the call that I received. So I rushed down to the school and now I'm just waiting in this lobby. And I'm like, "What is going on? I want to see my son. I want to see my son." And Megan O'Brien, she's the principal. She came up to me 3 separate times. "We're not ready for you yet. We're not ready for you yet." Finally, they bring me into a room. It's Megan O'Brien, the liaison officer, Keith Napo, and it's Andrew Tomzak, who at the time I thought was Thomas, the way he interjected like he was there. So they sit me down, and Megan O'Brien says, "Your son just threatened to shoot up the school during a verbal altercation with Thomas." And I said, "My son is a straight A student. He's never been in trouble in his life." I got to plug my computer, sorry. And she basically, "I'm so sorry." I charged it too right before. Um, Oh my gracious. Okay. So she basically says, my son, threatened to shoot up a school during a verbal altercation with another student. And I said, "My son is a straight A student. He's never been in trouble in his life." And she said Ethan Crumbly was a straight A student too. So Ethan Crumbly was the Oxford school shooter. So it just kind of shows you where their mindset was at that time. So they told me if I wrote a witness statement that I could take my son home. So basically now I'm writing a witness statement about what they just told me. So I start writing my statement and I'm already looking up medical evaluations because they said I need to take him to get a medical evaluation. And then they bring in my son, and I just start yelling at him. Like, "How could you do this? How could you say something like this?" He's completely white. He looks like a ghost. And so they leave us in the room for like 2 minutes. And then the detective comes in, and it's the first time we've seen the detective. And he just says, "Dylan, stand up. You're going to jail." So he starts to handcuff my son, and I lunge at my son's ankles because, like, "You're about to take my child." I don't think so. So it took 4 to 5 cops to get me off of my son. They basically tore my son out of my arms, and they waited until the bell was just about to ring. So it was like 2:45. You got all these kids spectating to humiliate my son. So they bring him out into the cop car. They put him in the cop car, and my son tells the detective that the handcuffs are hurting his hand. So he goes in the back and he tightens them. That's what my son said. So they basically treated him like a monster, and he didn't even do anything wrong. The kids were all of them said that's not what happened. And they just pushed this narrative. But I think the assignment had a lot to do with it. I think the fact that I had turned in that assignment where they were teaching that Christians worship Allah, and I found out later the detective was an atheist.
Mm.
So I think all of these things just played into just retaliating against my son and our family.
Now, did the boy who your son was in confrontation with, was he, and me as a Republican, I never bring up race or
Sure.
anything, but as you know, the Democrats will always bring up race. Was he black? Was he white?
They were both white, and
Okay.
he was definitely not in any kind of an altercation or anything like that. They were just having this, the judge said you can't expect these kids to say everything politically correct. And, they were just having this stupid conversation, and my son just said, "I'm not going to be like Oxford school shooter and shoot the school up like Oxford."
And it was
So,
probably
and the
misconstrued
teacher
by
was
the,
standing 15 feet away. She
yeah.
was 15 feet away. So she's the one who had reported this. But when she took my son out into the hallway and said, "What did you say?" He told her what he said. And she said, and I quote, and she said it in court, that context did not matter.
Ah! Oh my gosh.
I know the judge threw up his papers when she said that. She's like, well, he goes, what do you mean context doesn't matter? Context is everything.
Yeah, it sounds like what the liberal professor said, when the students at Harvard and Columbia, they called for the genocide of Jews and they said, well, it depends on the context. It's the same thing. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. The fact that they could do this to my innocent son it's just insane. And the fact that the injustice system in the lower court isn't seeing it. And I don't even know if it's that he's not seeing it. I think he just doesn't care.
That's what it sounds like to me. That's what it definitely sounds like to me. I mean, if a judge there, here's what the teacher said and was up in arms, like, what do you mean? Like the context doesn't matter or whatever. He should have thrown it out right away. Why is it continuing?
Right. So the criminal judge, we have a beautiful court transcript from him, which we're really grateful for. And he found my son not guilty. He said, I'm
Okay.
sorry your family went through this and you're free to go. So it wasn't even 3 months later. I'm suing. I am suing for what you put our family through. I'm suing for what you put my son through. And I've promised him justice and I've promised him a settlement. And the
Yeah.
settlement's great, but at the same time, I'm fighting because I'm a patriot as well. I'm fighting for our rights. I'm fighting so that this cannot happen to another innocent student.
So why did you name your Facebook page My Son on the Altar?
Well, I just felt like, in the Bible, when all of that is going on, I felt like that was where I was at that time, and I was driving home and I heard God say, had I asked you to sacrifice your son for the greater of good, would you have? And my flesh immediately said no. But then my spirit said, be it unto me, Lord. What are we doing? And that's when I pretty much just gave this battle over to the Lord, and I have to give it over to him almost every single day. Some days are easy, some days are a lot harder. If you know me, my children are my life. I'm not living my best life. I'm living my best life for my children. Everything is about them. I make those sacrifices for them. And yeah, when it comes to mama bear, I'm a mama bear, and they mess with the wrong little cub.
Now, would you consider doing a GoFundMe for yourself to help, get, I don't want to help with your legal fees? Like all of these, again, MS-13 gang member wives and all these murderers, they're putting up GoFundMe pages, because some people believe in, reparations for what's happened to me, or restitution for my illegal husband going over, going to El Salvador when he's really a criminal. What's
So
it about that? If you put up a GoFundMe, do you think that you would get as much money as these illegal criminals or these murderers are getting?
Well, so I actually did create a GoFundMe, and that was when I needed to hire a new lawyer. I had found out that my civil case was terminated from Googling. I'm actually just chilling out one night, and the Lord prompts me to look up my case, which I have not been able to do. I've had PSPD. I can't even watch the news. Like the news will come on and I'll tell my husband, please change it. Cause I have PSPD just by hearing it,
Mhm.
because we were on the news. It was very humiliating. But so the GoFundMe, I created it. My lawyer was incarcerated. So I didn't even know that my case was terminated. I found out by Googling. So
Mm.
that's when I kind of started freaking out. And I think at the time I had maybe 5 days to file an appeal. So I started researching, and then I started writing letters to the judge, because what that does is you can go online, you can now go under represent yourself, and you can start sending letters. And when you do that, the judge will put it in as an order, and it will start the time clock over again. So I was able to do that. I was able to gain my 30 days back. I was able to raise some money. I think I was able to raise 2,500, and then I just sold a house, so I was able to pay the rest. But it did not get a lot of, traction. I don't know if it's because I didn't really put it out there, but I really don't want the case on the local news. I feel like they really twist and turn things to fit their narrative. And, defending a Christian conservative, I just don't feel like that's something that this area, would be very interested in. But I had some friends and some family who donated, and we were able to get another lawyer. He filed the appeal, and we actually were only in appeals court for one day, and we received a notice that the next day that we received a settlement hearing notice. So I was thinking, okay, maybe they're finally going to feel sorry, have a little human decency for what you did to my family, and they're going to come to the table with something. Well, we ended up going, when was it? April 11th, and they were only talking to the mediator for like 5 minutes, and they said, we're not giving her anything, we're not settling, we're not doing anything. They believe they're going to keep their government immunity, is what they believe. So they had all these opportunities to settle and do what was right by my son, and they're just hunkering down and choosing to just fight, I guess.
Well, Allison, tell my audience about your son. Give us some, experiences that your son has had over the years, if he's been in sports. The audience wants to know about your son through your eyes.
Yeah, so my son was very bubbly, very personable, very happy before this happened. Just very witty, very sarcastic, like, I think he gets that from me. Just a beautiful, beautiful, happy soul. And after this, it just really took away his smile. Any smile now, it's kind of forced. He doesn't really like to do things like he used to. Um, he was able to get his grades back up, but he just found out he was not going to be able to go to the superintendent dinner because of his ninth grade GPA. It counts as your cumulative. And because of that, he wasn't able to reach that goal that he wanted to go to the superintendent dinner. And, it's just like one thing after another. He wanted to go to a college. I promised him this settlement, and then it didn't end up working out. So now he's not going to go to that college. And I mean, it just kind of keeps going downhill for him, I feel like. When he found out his case was terminated, that's when his mental state really, I think, was the worst, because he just felt like there was no justice. What happened to him was going to go unscathed. And that's when I really dug my heels in, and I was going to make sure that this was going to be exposed. This was not going to get buried. But he just got a job at Little Caesars, and he's happy about that. He's going to be graduating in May. He's happy about that. So, he has his faith, and he tries to be strong, but it's hard to make friends when you have, these rumors going on about you. So, he doesn't have any friends, and that's kind of depressing. But, I just try to encourage him daily. I hug my kids every day, twice a day. I'm a smother mother, and I'm very proud of it.
How many kids do you have?
So I have three. I have a bonus daughter. She's right there. She just got married. I'm gonna be
Wonderful.
a grandma. She's actually happy. Yeah, we found
You're
out
too young to
it's
be
gonna
a
be
grandma.
a girl. Huh?
I said you're too young to be a grandma.
Well, I'm about to be 40. My husband's a little bit older than I am. He's 45. So she's my bonus daughter. And then I have a 16-year-old. He actually went through some pretty rough times because of this as well. He was in the middle school. He had to stay in the middle school. So now
Mm,
I have to deal with the anxiety of dropping my kid off there. What
mm,
are they gonna try with him? It was
mm,
the first time he ever had a detention. And this teacher who had been at the school for, I think it was like 25 years, she calls me completely wasted one night.
mm,
And she tells me that my son made a sexual gesture to her. And I was like, this is not my son. Okay. This is not my son. And I knew it. So I
mm,
started questioning her, and she started stumbling over her words, because I said, well, how did you know what my son was doing if he had a mask on his face?
mm,
Right? How do you
mm.
know what my son's doing with his mouth if he has a mask on? Well, I just know what he's doing. I'm like, okay. So that was his first time ever getting a detention.
Oh my
And
God.
and then he tried out for the soccer team, which my son is very